also work. We started a big project, so my mind was really in there and not too much on my YouTube channel. But we're back, and we are somewhere at the end of the Freecodecamp course. Now I want to remind you, please, if you're watching this live or if you're watching the replay, I would really appreciate a like if you enjoy this, as it helps the channel. And if you're not subscribed already, I would appreciate if you subscribe and click the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know when I'm posting more content or when I'm having another live. So what we're going to do, I am going to watch the chat from time to time, just in case somebody's actually watching and they say something in the chat, they ask a question. So what I will do is I will get started from where we left off last time, and I will do this. We are basically in the intermediate algorithm scripting, somewhere in the middle of it, intermediate algorithm scripting module. So we have here a challenge. Given the array R like this, iterate through and remove each element starting from the first element, the zero index, until the function, this function that is pass, returns true when the iterated element is passed through it. So when this function is called with the current element, it should return true. When it returns true, we stop removing elements. All right. So I'm going to copy this because I like to work in Visual Studio Code, and basically given an array like this, right, and the function, we should basically map to the array or iterate through the array, and if as long as the function call with the current element returns false, we remove it. When it returns true the first time, we stop removing, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say here inside the function, I'm going to say for let I equal 0, because we're starting from the first element, and then we get, is this like this? I even forgot because I don't use for too much. Is it like this? I think it's like this. So for let I equal 0, I less than array length, right, and then I plus plus if function of array of I. So if this is true, so if it returns true, if the function call with the current element returns true, then what we want to say is break. So we break the for loop at this point, right? Otherwise we're going to, so here we're saying if this returns true, then we break and we start removing. Otherwise what we want to say is array, and we want to say shift, which is basically, sorry guys, my eyes itching a little bit. But I think there might be a mistake here, because if we are shifting here at the moment and we are basically removing an element, then if we're going with the for, then that's not gonna work. So what we want to do is we want to say, instead of using a for, I think what I will say is I will say while. So we're gonna use a while instead, and we will say while function of array of 0. So while this function call with the first element is not true, so we're going to use the negate operator here. So we're saying while this is not true, we're going to remove it, right? So we're going to say array shift and we remove it. So we're doing this while this is not true, and then we're returning the array. So this should be very simple. Let's put this in here. Thank you very much for the like, much appreciated. It does help the channel. Okay, so let's try this here. So what we're doing is we're checking if the first element of the array at this point in time uh, uh, passed in the function returns true, because if this returns true, then this negated would be false, and if it's false, then we remove it. And we're doing this while this returns false. When it returns true, we stop removing, right? So let's run the tests, and this works. All right. Now here it says flatten a nested array. You must account for uh, varying levels of nesting. So we can have something like this where basically you have multiple nested arrays and we have to flatten it. Now they don't tell us to not use a function that is actually provided by, I don't know if this if this um, if this challenge was made before that method was introduced into JavaScript, but this is quite easy now by using flat. There's a method flat which flattens at the level you say, like if you flat 3, it flattens 3 levels. And what you want to do here is pass infinity, and this will basically flatten it completely no matter how many level it has. So now in programming there's no need to reinvent the wheel, so this might have been harder before this was added, but because we have it now we don't need to like okay. So basically it says your solution should not use the array prototype flat or flat map, because so I guess they don't want us to use this, because but we can use this in like a normal environment. We could use this, but they don't want to use, they don't want us to use this. So we have to come up with our own method of flattening, right? So what we want to say is we want to say for okay, well, I'm going to like start writing, and then I guess we will figure out. But basically what we want to do, I think we will have to use recursion here, and we want to iterate to each element, and if the element is just an element and is not an array, then we will basically return that element. Otherwise we will what are we going to do? We're going to let me think. Yeah, we're going to call the function with itself, and then at the end what we want to return is basically um, let me think. Return array. Okay, well, we can basically pass kind of a second argument here, which is called is first iteration, which means is first iteration of this function, and it will start with true if no value is given for this one, right? And then here we say we basically say is at the end we say is first iteration. If it's first iteration, then we want to return R. Otherwise, we want to return, can we actually do this? We want to return R spread. This doesn't work. Can we put it like this? I wonder. This doesn't work. Why can I not? How would I be able to return some spread elements? Oh, actually, we can say this. Okay, let's do it like this. So here at the end we return R, and what we want to say, for let I equals 0, and then I less than array length I plus plus. So we go to each element, and actually, do we want to go with the for? I think we can go with map. Let's go with the map. So let's say R equals array map element, and then we say what do we want to return. So what we want to say is we use this array. There is a method array is array, which checks if something that you pass to it is an array. And if it's an array, what we want to return, we want to return, I don't think we need this anymore. We want to basically return steamroll array. So we want to call this function again on this element, steamroll array of element, but can we spread it here? How do I return something that is spread? Can I do this? I cannot do this. Okay, well, I will basically use reduce, because with reduce this should work. So I will use reduce instead. So what I will say is I will say array equals array reduce, and then here we have an accumulator and value, right? And by the way, if you don't know reduce, how to use the method reduce or any of these methods that I'm using, a lot of these methods I have like quite a few of them. Like reduce, I have it explained like 4 videos in really high detail, so I will not explain it here. But basically, we have an accumulator in which we accumulate and the current value, and we're going to basically accumulate in an array. We start with an empty array, and then what we want to say is if array is array of the current value. So if this is an array, then we want to give to the accumulator equals, we spread this accumulator, and then we spread basically steamroll array of the element of, well, of the value, right? Because we want to call it, if this is an array, we want to call this function again on it to flatten this as well, and we keep flattening, but we want to spread it because we just want the elements and so on, right? Because this returns, this function returns an array at the end, but we want to spread the elements as elements, right? Just as particular elements, not arrays, right? And else we just want to say accumulator equals, we spread the accumulator and we put the value here if it's not an array, right? And then at the end we want to return the accumulator. So before we test this, let me see if this works with this thing. Let's console log it. Clear, and this works. As you can see, it got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we have successfully flattened this array. So I hope you understood this. If not, please ask some questions. Hello, Salty CD. I guess we could have used for each as well, but again, I don't know if we could. Well, yeah, we could have done, I think, with for each as well, where we could have built this array into another array. So another example of this, where we don't do it with reduce, we could say basically, we can say const actually we will just say let accumulator equals empty array. So I will just delete this for now. So we can do this with for each, and then we say array for each element, and we say if array is array of element, then we want to say accumulator and here we can actually use concat, and we can concat basically steamroll array, because here when we use concat we don't actually have to spread it, so we can say steamroll array of element, right? So we basically concat this, otherwise accumulator push element. All right, and at the end we want to return the accumulator, right? Am I having a mistake here? No. So this should work as well. Okay, what is the mistake? For each element, if array is array of element, accumulator concat steamroll array of element. Why is this not working? Am I missing how the concat function works? Let me see. Don't think I'm missing how it works. Console. Okay, so console, I want the console. So if we do 1 2 3 concat and we say 1 2, what is this gonna do? This concats them, right? So what the problem? What is the problem? Let the accumulator equals array for each element, accumulator push. I don't get it why this not works. Yeah, no idea. Let's try to figure out. For each element we want to return accumulator concat steamroll array of element, and at the end we return the accumulator. Why is this just gives one? I don't get it. Yeah, arrays are very tricky. If array is array of element, then accumulator concat steamroll array of element. Also accumulator push element. Console log. Let me console log the accumulator here and here and let's see what's going on. Accumulator and here. So let's see. What is going on? This is first is 1, then is 2. Oh. I see what's going on. This accumulator should not be outside, it should be inside here. So we need this accumulator for each element, I think. No. This is getting a bit weird with this one. Let accumulate. Okay, so maybe I should not, because like we already found the solution, so probably I shouldn't really debug here this right now. We should try to go to the other ones. I will probably keep this in mind for one of the other like at the end of this we can. Okay, so let's test this again. So this works, and it's like much simpler with reduce. It basically works properly. All right, let's test it out here, because we want to go to at least the finish of the intermediate algorithm scripting in this live, so that we only have one module left. Okay, so here it says return an English translated sentence of the past binary string. The binary string will be space separated. How am I supposed to decode this? How are like things coded in binary? Google letters in binary. A. Let's look at the binary code for all the letters of the English alphabet to give you an idea how to write functions in code. To write binary code for calculate the code to find 1 equals to 0, 1 equals to 1. Okay, since zeros are of calculation are equal. Yeah, on the ASCII card is resemble the letter O. Okay, so basically for each of these things we have to start from the end and we say 2 to the power of 0, 2 to the power of 1, 2 to the power of 2, 2 to the power of 3, but this is 0, right, so we don't add it. Okay, so we basically need an ASCII chart. Google, I think JavaScript should have something about ASCII code to text. JavaScript from char code. Okay, so we have something. I think I used this before. So we can get string from char code 65, right? So first we have to calculate the char code, and then we have to use that thing. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna copy this here, and we have this string. So now what we're gonna do is string split by space, and then we want to say a map, and when we map through this we're gonna have these elements one by one, right? These are gonna be the elements. So we're gonna say for each element, and we're going to have a function, and in this function we're going to start with a number, well, a number that is, say, let us value equals 0, and then we're going to say how is this 2, it starts with 2 to the power of 0, right? And then 2 to the power of 7. Okay, so it starts from 0. So basically it starts the same way as index x start. So what we're gonna say is going to say for let I equals 2, and we're going to start from the last digit here in the element, the last digit. So we're going to need the index of that. So that's basically element length -1, and we're going to say until I is higher than or equal to 0, I minus minus, and in this for, what we want to say is if element of I, which means if this is 1, we basically want to say ASCII value. So if the value is 1, we want to add to the ASCII value basically equals to ASCII value plus 2 to the power of basically the index, which is I, right? And then at the end here we have the ASCII value. What we want to return is basically return string from char code, and we pass this ASCII value. And then at the end of this we will have basically an array with all the letters and whatever spaces and signs one by one, and what we want to say is we want to join this by nothing so we can perform a sentence. So let's test this out before we put it in there. Let's test it in Visual Studio Code. If I console log this, let's see if this works from the first time. And no, it gives me something very weird. Why are all of them give me the same thing? Let's see. If element of I higher than equal to 0, I minus minus. Why all of these give me the same thing? String from char code. Okay, let's see what happens if I just return the ASCII value. Is this the same? For it's a bit weird. Okay, why I get the same thing every time? So if I see what's going on. So basically, because we are checking for element of I, and this is gonna get basically the number from a string, which is gonna be the number in form string. And if you have a string with 0 in it, this is still gonna be like truthy value. So that's the problem. Basically, it basically does this thing for all of them, even when it's 0, because 0 is in a string and it's going to be a truthy value. So what we want to say is we want to make this a number, right? So that it's only truthy when it's 1 and not when it's 0, right? So then that should fix it. Clear. And now we get some other weird thing. And why is this not working? I need to do something else. Let me join it by space and remove this, because we definitely get different things, but I don't know why they are not transformed. String from char code. How do you convert ASCII code to character? Okay, but this saying from right to left using the digit. Oh, this is what's going on, because it needs to start with 0, but I'm doing the other way around. Basically, I'm using for the first one the element, basically the index, when I need to start from 0, right? So basically here this is wrong. What it needs to be, okay, so let me change back to this how it was, because this was correct. But here, instead of using e for the power needs to start from 0 and go up to I when you're at the first element, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to say it's going to be in length minus elements. Well, let me experiment a little bit here, because I really don't want to like deal with the logic now. But if we're doing this, maybe this is correct. Yeah, I think this should be correct. So we're basically getting the element length minus 1, which is basically the index of the last element, and we're taking the I out of it. So when the element is going to be the last element, that index is going to be this one, and we're also taking out the index, and it's going to be 0. Then when the I becomes basically the one for the second to last element, then this is going to be 1, and so on. So this should work. Let's do this. Okay, well, this is getting stupid. Two. Oh, wait, because I think because this might happen before this happens, so I need to put some parentheses maybe here. Okay. Yay, we did it. Aren't bonfire fast? This feels fun. It's like we're basically doing some decoder crap, you know? This was fun. Okay, let's copy this and put it in here. Run the test. Okay. Well, I didn't copy it right, or what's going on? Oh, yeah, I forgot one thing, because at one point I changed this from being to basically put them one after one to put a space between them. So that was the mistake. I was like, why the fuck this is not working, but because it's working on my computer. But there were some spaces between them. Okay. Why is this collapsing? Okay, let's try it. Okay, dokie. All right. Get a bit of coffee. This was a fun one. All right. So here they say check if the predicate second argument is truthy on all elements of a collection first argument. In other words, you are given an array collection of objects. The predicate pre will be an object property, and you need to return true if the value is truthy, otherwise return false. In JavaScript, truthy, false are values that translate to true when evaluated in a Boolean context. Remember, you can access object property to either the notation or this notation. So basically, we're getting past here an array of objects. Then we have a property, and we have to return true I think, only if the that property is true on all the objects in the collection, from what I understand. So let me copy this. I'm going to clear this here, save, and what we want to say is we're going to say is true. Well, I will say let is true equals to true, and then so I'm starting with it being true, and then what we want to say is for let I equals 0, e less than collection length I plus plus, if collection I of pre, so if that property, and we want to say if it's not true, so this check if that property is true on the object, but what we want to say if it's not true, then what we want to do is we want to say is true equals false. So at this point is true becomes false, and because we already found one where it's not true, then we can also break out of the for. I'm not sure if this breaks out of the if or of the for, but we'll check if it works. If not, I will have to use some kind of label. Alright, so let me do this and let me console log this. Clear. And here we don't want to return pre, we want to return is true. And it returns true. Was it supposed to return true? I don't know. Let's check it out. Ctrl C, put this here, and run the tests. And yeah, I was correctamento. By the way, if you're not watching this live, if you're watching a replay, don't don't stop yourself from putting any questions you have in the comments, and I will get back to you. Okay, so here it says arguments optional, and here and it says create a function that sums two arguments together. If only one argument is provided, then return a function that expands. If only one argument is provided, then return a function that expects one argument and returns the sum. What? I don't get it. For example, add together 2 of 3 should return 5, and add together of 2 should return a function. Huh? What? Calling this return function with a single argument will then return the sum. Oh, I see. Basically, they want us to, I don't know, I think we learned sometime before where I think you're basically kind of composing function or something like that. I really didn't ever use this, but I'm sure it can be used. Is basically to when you don't already have an argument, and you can make up the function which when called with the arguments, when you're getting it, then it's gonna do the thing. If either argument isn't a valid number, return undefined. Okay, so what we want to say is basically well, this is a function. I don't see any arguments here, so what I will have to do is basically use the, I think it's called arguments, the console log. Basically there's this thing that is called arguments, and it basically returns an array with all the arguments you pass. So if I say add together 3 4 5, it should basically get like arguments where you have some kind of object. But if I think if I spread this will be an array. Okay, and we get an array with whatever we pass, right? So then what we want to say is const args equals, and we're gonna spread the arguments, and we're going to say if arguments of 0 and, well, if argument of 0 is not equal to undefined, because it could be 0, not equal to undefined, and wait, so well, first what we want to say, if number, well, if is none, so we're going to check args of 0. So if this is none, or is none of args of 1, but also here I have to check and args of 1 is not equal to undefined. So if either the first argument is not a number, or the second argument exists and is not a number, which is basically this, then we want to return undefined. So return undefined, else if args of 1 equals to, well, if args of 1 is different than undefined, which means it also exists, then we want to return args of 0 plus arg of 1, which is actually the sum, right? Args of 1. And if that doesn't exist, then we want to return a function with basically an element, and which takes an element like a number, right? And that function will basically return that number plus args of 0, which is the number which we were actually passed. And I know this may seem a bit confusing, but again, if you don't understand what I'm doing, you can always ask a question. Okay, so let's just try this and see if it works. It should work unless I misunderstood something. Add together 5 and 7 should return. Okay, what am I doing here? Am I returning? What is going on? So let me see if I do const add equals add together and say 5, and I say console log add, what does this should return a function. Clear. This returns undefined. Why? Okay, this should be like this. Is none. Okay, is none here should be closed. Okay, so maybe that was the mistake. I think I can take these two things off. Or no, I think this should be fine. Okay, let's check. Okay, so now it returns a function. I think we were having some mistakes here. So let's try this. Add together of 2 and 3 should return undefined. 2 and 3. Why is this not returning undefined? Is not a number of args of 1. And args of 1 different than undefined. Oh, well, this one should return undefined. Why is this not returning undefined? What happens if what is not a number returns false for when it's a string? What? It's a string number? That shouldn't be correct. I wouldn't be aware of that behavior. if that was what's going on. Huh. So this is actually return false because it's a number but in a string. I didn't know that. JavaScript, you always amaze me. Okay. So how to check? How to what? Check for number JavaScript. But type of, okay, I see. So I'm just saying instead of saying this, what we want to say is type of this is not equal to number. So instead of doing it with none, which is a bit confusing from what they're doing, we're going to say if type of also not equals to number. So let's copy this. And I think there's still gonna be a mistake because they expect us to do the same thing in composite functions. Oh, what the heck? What happened here? Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, so now we only get the fade for this one because this one, the second one, passes something that's not a number. So what we have to do here is we want to say if type of number not equals to number, we want to return undefined. Okay, otherwise we can just go ahead and return this. Okay, so we just do the same thing as we did before. Okay, run the tests. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now it says fill in the object constructor with the following methods below. Okay, this one is like a bit complicated. I think there's like two more challenges until the end of this module, but I have to be somewhere in about half an hour, so I won't be able to actually finish these two because it seems it's gonna take a bit more time. So I will leave this for the next live. I'm gonna try to do one in the weekend, and we'll finish these two in that next live, and then we will go to the last module, which is going to be projects. So we're gonna have some small projects, and then we can just claim the certification, and we have basically have all the videos going through this course in my live events, so you can watch them all when you want. Alright, hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you next time. Bye bye for now.